What's going on, guys? So this is our Week 10 Draftkings Gpp lineup. Last week, lineup did pretty decent. There was some good plays that we plugged in there. The one guy that killed our lineup and killed a few of my lineups actually was Dez Bryant. He got shut down early and often. One catch for 19 yards. I mean, just horrible game for Dez Bryant. But our boy Dak Prescott, he came through with flying colors as always. And overall, I felt good about the way the lineup turned out. I had a few really high-scoring lineups last week, which saved me. And I had a few low-scoring games, so it's all about, variation. So when you're playing GPP, my number one tip to anyone who's new to this is play a variation of lineups. So if you feel really good about one or two guys, use them across the board, but vary your lineups a bit just in case one or two of your guys don't go off. You don't bury yourself. Now, if your top guys that you plug in almost all your lineups don't do what they're supposed to do, there's not much you can say there. So we're going to bounce back this week. And we're going to jump right into it to the quarterback position. And we are going with consistency here, and it's Dak Prescott. So Dak's playing Pittsburgh this week. As you saw last week, Pittsburgh, they're not looking as good as they usually do. So I have a feeling Dallas is going to air it up. Their defense isn't that great for Pittsburgh. The way Dak's playing, he's throwing a ton of touchdowns. He's not throwing interceptions. And what more can you ask for from a quarterback? He's going to get you, excuse me, he's going to get you around 250 yards, maybe even dabble around 300 yards. He's not going to be your super stud 400-yard quarterback on most nights. But when you're looking at his numbers, I mean, the guy puts up solid 4X on a regular basis, and that's good enough for me. So we're going to go ahead and plug in Dak. Not much more to say about that. Let's jump into running back, and that's our boy Jay Ajayi. So as you can tell, he did hit a wall. It wasn't the 3 back-to-back weeks of 200-plus yards, but 111 yards on 24 carries and a touchdown, and roughly 20 more yards on 3 receptions is a solid outing. So the Jets aren't the best defense, but they're also not the worst when it comes to the run. And he just tore them apart. Buffalo, Pittsburgh, I mean, he's unstoppable right now. And he's always been that kind of running back. He's just always been in the shadows. Now that he's the starting back, he gets to get all the work himself. Really, there's nothing stopping him from putting up a touchdown every single night. And against San Diego's run defense, they're not the best defense in the world. I really think he's good for 1, maybe even 2 touchdowns this week and just tear that team apart. So going into the next position, probably the chalkiest play of the week, but a must play in my opinion, is David Johnson. So David Johnson's playing for my team, the Niners. It's such a depressing season, but anyways, he's going to tear apart that defense. I mean, we don't have Navarro Bowman anymore. He's out, so basically our middle, rush defense is pretty much decimated. We're one of the worst teams, if not the worst team against the run. And the way David Johnson's been playing lately, I think he's good for 2 touchdowns this week, to be honest. They're at home in Arizona. He's been putting up consistent numbers. Last week it was a little bit different because they were coming from behind. He just didn't get as many carries as he should have. He did have 84 receiving yards, and that's another thing is they're using David Johnson as a receiver as well, just because Arizona's wide receiving core really isn't that great. So they're relying on both the run and the catch ability of David Johnson. So he's a must-play this week. Like I said, his ownership is going to be stupid high. I'd say probably, unless people fade him because of it, which I doubt, probably around 40%. But he's a must-play. I mean, if he goes for 30, 40 points this week, you don't want to be missing out on him. So we're going to jump over to the wide receiver position. Now, this week, I'm kind of doing something a little different. I'm not going to pay up for any of these stud wide receivers, at least not in all my lineups, and I'll tell you why. The matchups aren't as juicy as I would like them to be for really any of these guys. So Mike Evans may or may not play, but concussion issues. My fear is that he gets rocked, and you know that defenses, they look for weaknesses. My fear is that I plug him in this week, which he is one of my favorite top-end wide receivers, and he gets hit wrong, and he gets pulled from the game, and that's $9,000 worth of cap space that you don't get back. So I'm just going to go ahead and on a gut, I'm going to fade these top 4, top 5 guys. I'm actually going to drop down to, where is he at? Davante Adams. So Davante Adams is proving to be their number 2 wide receiver to Jordy Nelson. Personally, in my opinion, and based on numbers, he's just been more consistent than any wide receiver on that team. Their running back game is really off right now. Even with Ty Montgomery, they're not doing what they should on the backfield. So they're relying on the pass game. As you can tell, last week against Indy beat up Green Bay. I mean, smacked them around. They were struggling the whole game. They're just not playing like they should, and it's mostly due to the fact they don't really have a running back, currently active. The way Davante Adams is playing, he's getting touchdowns, 6 touchdowns on the season, which I think leads any other Packer wide receiver right now, if I'm correct there. And he's getting a ton of targets, 8, 14, 16. We're talking 38 targets in 3 weeks. That's stupid numbers. Must play for me this week. And against Tennessee, their defense isn't that great against the secondary, so... let's jump into a little bit of a value play here, and this is going to be our boy Kenny Britt. Now, he's climbing up in price. I liked him better when he was down around 3,700, but he's getting the production. He's proving to be their top target, really, in the Rams. So, 4 receptions on 6 targets and a touchdown last week wasn't phenomenal. He reached value. He did decent. I expect him to have a bigger game this week against the Jets. The Jets aren't going to play that great. Their quarterback situation is garbage. So I expect, the Rams to eat this game up. The secondary for the Jets aren't that great right now either, and they're going to be busy with Tavon Austin and his legs. So I expect Britt to feed really nice this week, and I suspect a lot of people are probably going to be more on Tavon, which I don't know why. That guy hasn't done shit all season, but whatever. Let people jump on the bandwagon, I guess. So let's go ahead and we're going to go with probably one of our top wide receiver picks this week, and that's Alshon Jeffery. They're going against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's pass defense isn't great. Now, they have proved in the last few weeks that they can be a contender, both defensively and obviously offensively. But Chicago's, they're back to their original setup with Jay Cutler. He's healthy, apparently, so he's going to be playing. Alshon Jeffery has always been one of the top targets for, Chicago. He's an older guy. He's been around for a while. I don't say old, but he's been around for a while. He's a good, consistent wide receiver. Only 1 touchdown on the season, which I blame that more for the fact that he's both been dealing with injuries and they had a different QB in the position. Obviously, once Cutler came back, what did he do? He got a touchdown. So I think they're going to connect again this week against Tampa Bay. Assuming Mike Evans plays, that potentially could be a shootout between those two teams. And I just think Alshon Jeffery is a must-play this week. So tight end, we're going to do something a little different this week. We're going to run with Gates, obviously. I think he's one of the better tight ends this week when you look at numbers. The Miami-San Diego game, I think, will be a shootout. I think it'll go pretty high scoring. And the thing with Antonio Gates is he's an old guy. He's been around a long time. He's not as fast as some of these young guns, but he's a reliable pass catcher. He gets the targets, and he's getting the end zone targets as well, in the red zone. He's received 28 targets in 3 weeks, and he's caught 14 of them. So, those are decent numbers. 2 touchdowns in 3 weeks. I think he's going to continue that momentum, assuming he stays healthy. I don't see any reason why he doesn't get at least 15 to 20 points this week. He's just been putting up phenomenal numbers, and the thing with Gates is he's really low-owned lately, and I don't know if it's because you see a lot of Kyle Rudolphs, Greg Olsons, Gronkowskis, but you know what? I generally don't pay up for tight end. It's kind of a unique position. They either do really well or they do really bad, but in a week like this where I think a lot of people are just going to shoot for the top and pay up for the chalk and find trash, garbage value plays, I think it's better to play it safe and throw a little mid to low range tight end in there and pay up elsewhere. So, and we're going to actually run a dual tight end formation on this GPP this week. And the reason I'm doing that is you always want to differentiate your lineup from the rest. So in GPP, the key is to not match the rest of the field. Now, if your lineup matches to 90% of the field, then you really don't benefit from anyone going off. You want to have something that's completely different, a little more risky. You don't want to be too risky where you're basically playing stupid, but you also don't want to be too safe either. This isn't a cash game. You're going to shoot for the top. You really got to take chances and hope that nobody else is on the same path. So Lance Kendrick is our second tight end that we're going to run this week. He's the cheapest option when you're looking at cost, $3,000. Production is there over the last 3 weeks, double-digit outings in fantasy points. He's getting a lot of receptions. He's actually the second most targeted, I guess you can say, receiver / tight end on that team to Kenny Britt right now. And he's just getting a lot of usage. What does he have? 20, 30, 29? Wow, 29 targets in 3 weeks. It's a lot of targets. And the thing with tight ends, too, and you got to look at is tight ends are always going to be cheaper than your wide receivers and your running backs in most cases, unless it's a injury fill-in or something like that. So what you want to look at tight end is tight ends that get targeted a lot. Offenses that rely on tight ends, which the Rams really don't have a whole lot of deep threat weapons. Their quarterbacks, all of their quarterbacks are freaking garbage. So they do rely on the tight ends quite a bit. And they're using Lance Kendrick more as a wide receiver and not so much as a tight end, which is good for his production both on yardage and as well moving throughout the season. I think will also help him with his end zone, receptions as well, getting those touchdowns. So Lance this week, I think, is a must-play, kind of a sneaky, low-owned. So between our two tight ends, we're only spending $6,900. That's cheaper than one stud wide receiver. So if you look at it that way, we're getting a potential 30 points between the two of those guys. I don't think there's really going to be anyone on the top end of the field that are going to get 30 points this week. And then we're going to go with our defense, and must-play for me this week is Houston Texans. So Jacksonville, everyone knows is trash. They throw a lot of interceptions. Blake Bortles just doesn't have anything rolling in his favor right now. Houston's not the best defense. I think defensive, on a defensive front, Houston will be high owned just because it is Jacksonville matchup. But I also suspect a lot of people are going to fade Texans just because they haven't been putting up really big numbers on defense. They only have 17 sacks on the season, 3 fumble recoveries, and 3 interceptions over 8 weeks. That's not phenomenal numbers. And I don't expect them to have a monster game. I think they're good for probably 2 interceptions this week, maybe a fumble recovery. And I think it'll be a low-scoring game, which is always good for defenses. So if you can keep them from scoring, your defensive value goes up. A couple interceptions and fumble recoveries, your money. So I think Texans are a must-play. So looking back at this, we got Dak Prescott, Jay Ajayi, David Johnson, Devontae Adams, Kenny Britt, Alshon Jeffery, Gates, Kendricks, and the Texans. So appreciate you guys watching my video. You can smash that like button if you like my videos. Leave a comment in the comment section if you have any input on these lineups or you want to share your lineups. I'm open to anything here. Appreciate everyone's support. And, tune in next week. I'll have another lineup. And by the way, this is my lineup for the Sunday slate, not the Thursday slate. So if you're wondering where this is being played, this is going to be in the Sunday only. So anyways, good luck this week. Hope everyone makes a lot of money. See you next week.